This episode of M&F Reps is presented by the brand new and free GX app. What is the GX app? Man, am I glad you asked. It's a training tool that combines years of data and analysis from super knowledgeable doctors, scientists, trainers, and strength coaches to help athletes of all skill levels unlock their potential. Add companion hardware like the GX Sweat Patch and the GX Smart Bottle to make the experience even more personalized. If you're dedicated to training and want useful, high quality, and well-researched material, you'll want to take a look at this app. Besides, it's free. What do you have to lose? This conversation is with Dan Schaefer, and he is a former strength and speed coach at Florida State University and the brains behind the workouts and the GX app. What was something that you were hell-bent on avoiding, or you knew you wanted to avoid as you were creating this? Because normally, you're going to come in with some ideas, like you have what you want, but you also know exactly what you don't want because you've been either testing other things or going through it. And again, you were at Florida State. And if this is incorrect, please correct me. But you were working with track and field. You were working with tennis, among other sports. That's a lot. So what did you say? Here's what we're definitely not doing.
Oh man. I guess I hadn't really thought about it through that lens, as in like what I definitely wouldn't do. I think we can it's probably a little easier to regress from what I definitely wanted, which was to make it feel, the way that you would go through a workout if you were an elite athlete, right? So you would have this. From that lens, I guess, without explicitly saying it, what I didn't want it to feel like was just a piece of paper that was handed to you with right. Sets, reps, and exercises.
Is there a plan down the line to help people build their own programs, or is that just not something that would be recommended?
Man, that's a really, really good question. So I think, the vision is that the experience within the app will grow, and that can grow by like quality, attribute, experience level, and things like that. The reason why, we want people to come to the app is because it is going to be a place where, I guess, information that is often siloed can be free and right. readily available. When you get into the strength conditioning profession and you get your certifications and you go through all the schooling and you do these internships, you learn that there's a rhyme and a reason why you do things in a specific way, why order and selection and intensity and volume and load, why those things are all important. I think it's really cool to give the athlete more ownership within those confines. But at the same time, I'm hoping that people lean on the expertise that's been behind the development of this app of like, oh, these are here for a reason. And maybe we can give people more flexibility within some of those reasons. But at the end of the day, they're here because they're backed in experience and scientific principles, and they're meant to be complementary, right? So that if you are engaging in something else and you want to have a strength conditioning program in addition to a sport that you're playing or something like that, these things make sense.
If somebody says, hey, Dan, I want to follow your career path. I want to be a strength and conditioning coach at a very elite, elite school with great athletes, and eventually I might want to go teach. What's the first step?
Yeah. So I've been given remarkably good advice throughout my life. And so I share these two things with anyone who asks me the question that you just did. And the two best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten, the first one is find who has your dream job and figure out how they got there, right? So, the first thing is that I figure out who has a position that I would really like, and you sort of regress from there. And the thing that I've learned about human performance world is that people are remarkably nice. Usually, if I send an email or try and contact them, or I just do a follow-up email, usually I hear back. And that's been really nice and rewarding. And people have been, really helpful throughout that process. So, just kind of like sending out a feeler can get you really far. So first one is find out who has your dream job, see how they got there, and see if you can maybe repeat some of those steps. And then the other one is it's a competitive field. It's a competitive world. And the other piece of advice I got was figure out what you need to do to get better at your craft, and then get up an hour earlier than you normally do and work on what you need to do. And for me, that started as preparing for my certification. So I would get up in the morning and I would study for an hour before I would go and lift or eat or do whatever I had to do for the morning. And then that turned into program design. And so, early on, I would write a program for anyone and everyone, people that maybe just made eye contact with me that didn't even want a program. But you want a program? Here's one. And it's just you know, I wrote a lot of terrible programs for a while until I started to like figure out, you know, like what is the sweet spot? What is the right amount of volume? How to do a proper needs analysis? And it's just like, it's the mechanics that you have to go through in order to kind of get it all figured out.
The fact that you can admit it now and say, I took the time to refine this, that's really cool. And I wish there's a lot of folks in this industry that don't. They've never made a mistake. They've never given a bad recommendation. And I don't think necessarily I think it's a lot of the guru type of people, right? Like that really don't take the steps that folks like you have taken to ensure that you're taking responsibility for putting out information. They just put it out there because they want to make a buck. I get it. Everybody's got to put food on the table, but man, it just sucks when people get sucked into that. So that's why, again, it's another thing I appreciate about the GX app. I talked about how it's based on the style or type of training of the athletes that are highlighted. But what does that mean exactly?
This is going to be like a decade's worth of knowledge in a sentence. I had to move away from like holding on to specific exercises and move more towards a flexible framework of qualities and movements, right? With all the programs that are in the GX app, you'll see that they have some sort of like quality, like power or speed or strength or something like that, right? So at the end of the day, what's really important is that your program is reflective of the quality that you're trying to cultivate, right? And then there's different movement patterns that you can do to do that. Like I don't necessarily need to be glued to the back squat, although it is one of my favorite exercises ever. There are a lot of ways to strengthen the lower body, right? The rationale behind a lot of the programs and the way that they're constructed is this thought process of, you know, an athlete needs to have some sort of plan that's based around an attribute, right? And so whether that's strength or power or conditioning, and then the program's kind of built out to be reflective of that. And we have the ones that we have at launch to have enough, I guess, sort of width so that, you know, if someone was interested in partaking in one of these programs, there would either be, you know, sort of an athlete that, you know, is in alignment with something that they would aspire to be, or that there would be qualities that they feel like they need to work on.
Thanks for being so generous with your time.
All right, take care.
All right, later, man. Thanks to Dr. Dan Schaefer for hanging out with me and running through his background, his approach and evolution to programming, and providing insight as to how the GX team came up with the workout programs that they launched with. You can check out his efforts by downloading the free GX app on iOS. And thank you for listening. Give this a gold star or a golf clap or a share or a like or whatever you're supposed to do to help this thing feed the Google algorithm matrix thingy. That would be great. And if not, that's fine too, but it would be much cooler if you did.